Today, we look at the top 10 best footballers of all time. Number 10. George Best. Best's extraordinary natural talent not only made him one of the most iconic and entertaining players there has been, but the finest from the British Isles. If I'd been ugly, he once said, you'd never have heard of P. Although that may be a stretch, it was an acknowledgement that, for all of his ability, his womanizing stopped him from achieving even more. United's top scorer in the league for 5 successive campaigns, he netted a record double hat-trick at Northampton in the FA Cup in 1970, but the team declined around him as off-field distractions began to take their toll on Best himself. His last appearance for the club came at the age of 27, before he turned out for a random assortment of clubs, among them Dunstable, South African club Jewish Guild, Stockport, Cork Celtic, Los Angeles Aztecs, Fulham, Hibernian, Hong Kong club CB, Bournemouth, and Brisbane Lions. Number 9. Ronaldo Nazario. The bald-headed, gap-toothed kid's place in the pantheon of modern greats is now secure. He won his first FIFA World Player of the Year award at the tender age of 20 in 1996, went on to become the second footballer to be honoured 3 times, claimed the Ballon d'Or twice, and became the World Cups. Has there ever been a more impressive debut season for a club anywhere in the world than a 9 managed in Barcelona? The Brazilian scored 47 goals in 51 matches as the Catalans won the Copa del Rey and UEFA Cup Winners' Cup, and narrowly missed out on La Liga, but Barra couldn't hang on to him for long. Yet the last chapter infamously didn't go as planned. He suffered a fit before the final against France and failed to perform after he was eventually named in the starting lineup as Brazil lost 3-0 to the hosts. He later signed for Real Madrid and showed tantalizing glimpses of his best form as on. 8. Alfredo Di Stefano. The blonde arrow may not have boasted the natural gifts of players like George Best or Diego Maradona, but Charlton and Franz Beckenbauer, among others, have both stated that Di Stefano was probably the best all-round player to grace football. Real Madrid fought tooth and nail with bitter rivals Barcelona for his signature. In the midst of an acrimonious battle between the giants, the Spanish Football Federation suggested both clubs share the player, but controversially awarded Madrid the first bite at him. Barcelona officials claimed that Francoist influence was the root cause of the federation's decision, but were later persuaded to sell their rights to the player anyway. Throughout the next 11 campaigns, Di Stefano won 8 Spanish titles, plundered 218 goals in 282 matches, and won 5 consecutive European Cups. Naturally, he scored in all 5 finals. On the final day of the league season in 1958-59, with both players level on goals scored, Ferenc Puskás passed to his teammate rather than score himself. Nonetheless, the Hungarian said of him, Di Stefano is the best there has been or is ever likely to be. 7. Franz Beckenbauer. Beckenbauer was adept at playing in several positions. Originally a centre-forward, he actually made his Bayern debut in the Regionalliga Süd as a left winger, and in his first full season, Bayern won promotion to the recently formed Bundesliga. As Bayern's youth team products blossomed, Bayern grad. Bayern won a hat-trick of Bundesliga titles between 1972 and 1974, and did likewise in the European Cup between 1974 and 1976. On the international stage, Beckenbauer captained West Germany to triumph in the 1972 European Championship and 1974 World Cup. Like Bayern, Beckenbauer wasn't universally loved and often expressed shock at the aggression displayed towards his team at Bundesliga away games. Aged 18, he was banned from the West German youth team for refusing to marry his pregnant girlfriend, and controversially he was no longer selected. Der Kaiser returned to the Bundesliga in the early 1980s when he led Hamburg to the league title. Naturally, he was a born winner. 6. Zinedine Zidane. There's a common conception in football that the most creative talents also tend to be the least efficient. That style comes at the expense of steel. It's what constitutes the idea of the luxury player. Zidane was the most luxurious player possible, and yet combined it with towering levels of competitive resolve, a heady cocktail of technique, grace, competitiveness, and the uncanny ability to pick his moments with aplomb. For a player whose basic function was to facilitate and create, and who was far from a prolific scorer, he was remarkably decisive, as evidenced by goals in 2 separate World Cup finals and an astonishing winner in a Champions League final for Real Madrid in 2002. But as productive as he may have been, the sense was always that you were watching an artist at work. Most sports people gear their game around what is most likely to bring them success, sacrificing aesthetics and extravagance at the altar of shiny medals. For Zidane, such a compromise was heresy. Success was simply the inevitable result of his on-pitch beauty. 5. Johan Cruyff. 2 months after making his first-team debut, Cruyff met former PE teacher Rinus Michels. Together, the pair invented total football. Wingers and overlapping full-backs kept the pitch wide, defenders were encouraged to bring the ball out from the back if a midfielder dropped to cover the space, and the centre-forward, usually Cruyff, could roam free as Michels' on-field conductor. It worked. Cruyff won 20 major honours, including 3 successive European Cups from 1971 to 1973 before a player revolt had him banished to Barcelona. Part of arguably the best team never to win the World Cup in 1974, the Netherlands lost 2-1 to West Germany in the final, having gone 1-0 up without the hosts touching the ball. Cruyff may not have reached his peak with his national team, but that only adds to his allure. He retired in 1978, aged 31, and refused to go that summer's World Cup. The following year, however, he was back, having lost the vast majority of his fortune in a pig farm venture in Catalonia. 4. Diego Maradona. Just 5 feet 5 tall, El Pibe de Oro's dribbling skills enthralled a generation from the moment he made his Argentinos Juniors debut as a 15-year-old and nutmegged an opponent with his first touch. He scored 116 goals in 166 games, then joined Boca, winning the league title after a solo goal against rivals River Plate. Barcelona paid £5 million a year later. Within months, he'd taken Real Madrid apart at the Bernabeu before injury and illness struck him down. He moved to Napoli for £6.9 million in 1984, the first player transferred for a world record fee on 2 separate occasions. There came his finest days, inspiring his new club to the only 2 league titles of their history after World Cup glory in Mexico. He captained Argentina to another final in 1990. Yes, he never won the European Cup or progressed beyond even the last 16. But Maradona was about so much more than mere trophies. 3. Pele. At the age of 17, in 1958, P became the youngest player to feature in a World Cup final. He scored 6 times in Sweden, including a semi-final hat-trick and 2 more in the final. It was to be the first of 3 World Cup trophies he brought back home as an answer to those tears he saw running down his dad's face. His contribution in 1962 was minimised by injury, while the persistent fouling of him in 1966 made him swear that it would be his last World Cup. He didn't stick to it. He was convinced into returning for a 4th tournament in 1970 and became part of one of the best attacks ever compiled. Alongside Tostão, Jairzinho, Rivellino, Clodoaldo and Gerson. While Jairzinho top-scored, P added 4 more to his World Cup tally. In the 1960s and 70s, P travelled the world with his club team Santos. In Nigeria, a 2-day truce was declared in the war with Biafra as a way for both sides to watch him play. His impact on the Nigerian football psyche is so huge that when he predicted an African nation would win the World Cup before the noughties, local fans already saw it coming. The Brazilian played his last game for Santos in 1974 and postponed his retirement plans to sign for the New York Cosmos. He was in debt and desperate to recover his finances, so chose to move to the North American Soccer League. After leading the Cosmos to the National title in 1977, he played his farewell game on a rainy New York day. After leading the Cosmos to the National title in 1977, he played his farewell game on a rainy New York day. But how many days he'd brightened before that? 2. Lionel Messi. By now, most know his story, how expensive medicine for a growth hormone deficiency led him from his hometown Rosario to Barcelona, where his 2004 debut started an era of brilliance. He has been voted into the world's top 3 players for 10 years, and in the top 2 for 9. The live-wire dribbler has become a mature playmaker who now dictates play while still proving decisive in the final third. Never has Messi, now in his 30s, better balanced playmaking, dribbling and goal scoring. As Javier Mascherano has said, he is three players in one. You could argue that one of the greatest goal scorers of all time is also the best passer, and you would not lack evidence to support your claim. The best we can do is listen to Pep Guardiola, who said, "Don't write about him, don't try to describe him. Just watch him." 1. Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo has done an extraordinary job of holding back the aging process, scoring 66 goals for Portugal after his 30th birthday to set a new international goal-scoring record and taking his Champions League tally to a record 140. This is a player who's won both the Ballon d'Or and the Champions League 5 times, captained Portugal to their only international trophy, won 4 European Golden Shoes and become Real Madrid's record scorer, netting at least 50 goals in 6 successive seasons. Ronaldo has been a superstar, one of the very finest footballers of all time. No player has ever spent so long at the top,